join Dionne Ligoure, who is the head of communications at Caribbean Airlines, to give us an update as to what's happening with the airline. Good morning, Dionne.
Hi, good morning, Lisa. Good morning to your guests on set and to your listeners in Trinidad and Tobago and wherever in the world they may be. Yes, go on, sorry.
Well, I just wanted to jump right in because, of course, you know, everyone's talking about the whole fact that someone came in on the airline and so on. What update can you give us with regard to crew and to passengers who would have been on that particular aircraft?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say clearly and concisely that the safety of our customers and employees, the safety, security, and good health of our customers and employees is the highest priority of Caribbean Airlines. And from the get-go, from the start, Caribbean Airlines closely monitored, prepared, and responded to developments relating to COVID-19. Nothing is more important to us than taking care of the customers, of the employees. It is what we do every day. Already in place, and this has been in place from the immediate start of COVID when it was nowhere in the region. We activated a special response team, and that team, I am on that team, and we are monitoring this virus in real time. The aircraft that we use, and this is critical for persons to know, our aircraft are cleaned and sanitized every day at all ports. The disinfectants we use on the airplanes are approved by the environmental protection agencies internationally, and they're approved as effective against COVID-19 and corona-type viruses. Additionally, we have increased the quota of cleaning chemical supplies at all of our stations. We have expanded the cleaning protocols. So in all areas where you have high frequency touching and so on, we have ramped up the cleaning in those areas. Of course, people have expressed concerns about the impact of travel disruptions to the normal services and so on.
So can I jump in as you mentioned that? I do want to go back to the question about the crew and the passengers, but as you spoke about disruption, are there flights that have been canceled? And if persons need to cancel their travel, what is the process and with regard to refunds and that sort of thing?
To your first question, no. Flights have not been canceled. Additionally, we have very robust policies and procedures in place to minimize any kind of impact should there be cancellations. With respect to the travel policies, we do have waivers in place. Persons can visit the Caribbean Airlines website for directions on those waivers because it depends on your period of travel when your ticket was booked, but we are trying to work with our customers to make these changes as smooth as possible.
Okay.
However, I can say that persons can, in fact, place their tickets on hold. You can place your tickets on hold, and the tickets will remain valid for travel when placed on hold.
Now, Dionne, usually the placing on hold is for a period of 1 year. But if you have made travel arrangements for a particular time and you are not sure now that you will be able to use it within a year, is it that this would be extended or is it for the same 12-month period?
We are looking at the cases because, of course, Lisa, this is an evolving situation, and we are working with our customers, so we are exploring various angles and looking at things on a case-by-case basis, depending on the particular circumstance. And I'm reinforcing to our valued customers that based on the fact that this situation is in fact evolving, airline policies are subject to change based on the prevailing conditions.
Okay.
But I can say that we are working with our customers, we are working with our suppliers as well to mitigate and minimize passenger inconvenience. I really want to reinforce that the quality of our cabin air is something that is monitored. We monitor that daily, and our equipment is the aircraft is equipped with state-of-the-art, what you call high-efficiency particulate air filters or HEPA air filters.
Mm-hmm.
And those air filters capture about 99.97% of all particles. We change those filters in keeping with our industry standards and in many times above the industry requirements, so that Caribbean Airlines, I am assuring the traveling public that Caribbean Airlines has and continues to ensure that we place the safety of the customers, the safety of our crews as the highest priority. And we are very proactive in terms of dealing with this.
Dionne,
very, very proactive.
Dionne, let me jump in there as you spoke about the cruise. I want to go back to my original question about the passengers who would have been on the particular aircraft with the passengers and the crew. What measures would have been put in place, or if you can give us an update on that.
Absolutely. Caribbean Airlines, of course, we work very closely with our stakeholders. And in this instance, our stakeholders are, of course, located in all of the jurisdictions in which we operate. Immediately on receiving information regarding the customer, our immediate protocol was put in place. We sought advice from the public health authorities who have been working very closely with us. So as a precaution, the crews that were associated with the flight are now in self-quarantine for 14 days. The public health authorities are keeping in very close contact with them to conduct the relevant checks. And this, of course, is in keeping with the directives from the Ministry of Health. So there is a process. Once there is self-quarantine, the public health authorities, they take over that process. However, our duty of care is paramount. So our medical personnel are also in contact with the crews to check up on them. Our managers of in-flight, we are in constant contact with them to ensure that, in terms of their psychological and physical well-being, that things are, that they feel good, and in addition to the physical checks that the public health authorities would undertake.
All right, I have Dr.
So that,
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that we have been in very close contact, liaising with them. The crews are in good spirits. Our crews really, and I have to take this opportunity to commend the crews of Caribbean Airlines and our customer-facing employees. When I say, Lisa, we have troopers out there, real troopers, and we don't take these things for granted.
Absolutely.
But I am assuring the public we have been preparing, and we are doing all possible, working with the authorities to ensure that we try to keep the environment as sanitized and clean as possible. But the public, as Dr. Wheeler and your other guests have said, we all have a part to play we can only deal with this collectively. We must work together.
Okay, I want to bring in Dr. Wheeler, who's here on set with us. Dr. Wheeler, Dionne spoke about, Dionne Ligoure, who's head of communications at Caribbean Airlines, just spoke about the airline, taking extra caution with regard, well, precautions rather, with regard to sanitizing and ensuring that the aircraft is clean regularly. And I know persons are actually walking, and we're seeing videos of people sanitizing their seats, and so even though the airline is doing that, is that necessary?
Well, I think people are doing that simply because they are worried. The airline does do their proper sanitizing, so I believe that is more of a comfort to people to do it, but it's not absolutely necessary. Although persons themselves have a responsibility for their own cleanliness. So I would not second guess what the airline is doing, but I believe people are doing it simply because they feel comfortable doing it.
All right, and there has been testing that's going on, a scanning of passengers as they exit the aircraft. Dionne, I know that is not Caribbean Airlines, that would be the Ministry of Health. That would be doing
that's Port Health.
Yes, that's doing
Port Health,
doing the scanning. Is that sufficient right now that the virus is actually in the country, or is there a need for additional testing, Dr. Wheeler?
Well, quite honestly, the thermal testing still needs to continue because it picks up those who have a fever. So once you have a fever, there is nothing else in the airport specifically that you can do to a person without, I suppose, violating their own personal space and human rights. So having the thermal scanner is something that it is quite feasible for the government to do to pick that up. If the person is then picked up as having a fever, this is where then we talk about the protocols coming into effect that we have been working with the government, and the government knows this. So they have protocols and guidelines that if a person has a fever, then they will be taken aside and they will be dealt with separately. So that is what I meant about moving from preparedness to action. So I believe that would have been done once the thermal scanners were installed. The staff would have been trained on what to do should there be a case of someone with a fever. How do you isolate them, check them, bring a medical person to check that individual, and then if they're suspected, to remove them safely.
Okay. All right. So Dionne, if you're still there, yes, I want
I am.
I want to thank you. I just want to reiterate some of the things that you said, that there have been no cancellations so far, that persons should check the Caribbean Airlines website with regard to travel if they need to change or to cancel or to reschedule or so on. But Dr. Wheeler, as you're on the line, it is still relatively safe for persons to travel, even if that is if they have to travel, is it?
Yes, but remember there are precautions in terms of which countries they're traveling to. So, for example, for employers, you won't send someone to Italy at this moment, and all of the other places that are on the list that the government, there are 9 countries now on that list. So both individuals as well as employers have a responsibility of looking at whether the person still needs to travel depending on where they're going to, and they have to assess the risk of exposure to that individual if they are traveling to a country where there are COVID-19 cases.
Well, one of the things that came up, and I know we still have Dionne on the line, is that yes, we may have a travel restriction to a particular country that we're seeing higher numbers, but people travel all the time, and you have passengers from all over the world in one aircraft, in the airports and so on. So does that increase the risk of contracting the disease?
Well, all mobility does if people don't observe personal hygiene. And we don't watch, you can't watch someone all of the time, but once you are mobile, and remember, you can have a very mild case of COVID-19 that manifests itself. Probably they might think they just have a regular flu, and they do travel. They may not have fever, but they may have other symptoms. They might be coughing or sneezing. So once you are mobile, there is a possibility that the virus can be transmitted. But the World Health Organization, I repeat, always said at the beginning, this should not shut down trade and travel, but we have to be cautious and sensible, both as individuals, whether it be for pleasure, or employers, if it be for work, in sending employees to countries where COVID-19 is present.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Erica Wheeler. Thank you very much, Dionne Ligoure, Head of Communications at Caribbean Airlines. Dr. Wheeler, of course, is the Trinidad and Tobago representative for PAHO and WHO, as well as for the Dutch Caribbean Islands. We're going to take in a few messages. We're spending a lot of time this morning on coping for COVID-19, but we do have Kent Fuentes. It's Friday, of course. It's Sports Friday, so Kent is going to be up next after this.